Hey, welcome in, everybody. It's Just Dubs. It's John Dickinson and Greg Silver, and it's the first of our off-season podcast editions here for KMBR, the sports leader, as we come to you with the second round, the semifinal round in the conference semifinals underway in both the East and the West, and a lot of different stuff going on there as it pertains to the Warriors, and some surprises, some chalk there as well among the 8 teams that currently are left in the NBA. The Warriors aren't one of them. They long haven't been one of them here for almost a month now, going back to when they were eliminated in Sacramento. But Greg, it's good to be with you, my friend. And I know we're going to be doing a lot of these. We're probably a little overdue on getting the first one in due to some schedule conflicts and wanting to make sure we got a little bit of a breather and before we started to digest some of the off-season stuff. But good to be with you, my friend, and we got a lot to get into.
Good to be with you, too. I'm almost wondering, do we need to, do some icebreakers because we're so off our rhythm of doing this every other day or 3 and 4 days like we were for the last couple of months with the Warriors? But no, in all seriousness, it's good to be here, and we'll be doing these Just Dubs throughout the summer and the off-season, so it's going to be good to kind of keep this Warriors discussion going around KMBR, and we'll try to have a couple of live streams as well. I know this one we're just recording, but we want to get the YouTube chat back in it too, as we miss you all, and great to be here.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of news, and when things break, we'll try to get in and share our thoughts on everything as quickly and efficiently as possible. I know, Greg, you kind of laid out to make sure, because it has been a couple of weeks since we've last done a show. I know you kind of went through and with the intent on keeping me on task here, providing a little bit of order, because I tend to ramble. And we will get into some of the playoff series and everything that happened in the first round and what's still going on in the conference semifinals and all of that as we record this. Thursday, so the 9th. So after tonight, everybody will have played 2 games in their conference finals or conference semifinal series and be headed toward game 3s. Next up for the Warriors, the lottery. Although a staple, if you're of a certain age of Warrior tradition. But the Warriors, as we've laid out, Greg, just a 3.3% chance of keeping their lottery pick, which currently is 14th. If they move into the top 4, which they've got a 3.37 chance of doing, then they would keep the pick. It would not convey to Portland. If they are the first envelope up when all of the envelopes are put out on Sunday, this is coming up on the Mother's Day Sunday, the NBA draft lottery, then you're going to see that Portland logo right away. It should be Portland logo. And if you see a Sacramento logo, then that would mean that the Warriors somehow moved into the top 4 and would be keeping their pick, which would be kind of crazy, but highly unlikely. That pick obviously goes back to the Iguodala trade to Memphis. Memphis shipped it to Portland. That was when the Warriors were hard capped back in 2019, as they did the sign and trade with Kevin Durant to get D'Angelo Russell, who eventually turned into Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga. And so you're paying the credit card interest on you're paying the bill. You're paying the balloon payment with that lottery pick conveying to now Portland, who owns it through Memphis. But I'll still be watching the lottery, because I grew up. The lottery was just a staple, whether it was the Warriors or the Kings. It was lottery, baby.
I was gonna say, it doesn't matter which team in NorCal. That was a big deal for both. And the Kings had a lot of interesting first round picks, as did the Warriors. But look, it's a 3.7% chance they move into the top 4. And I'm going to spend 3.7 seconds talking about it. If for some reason they do get there, we can deal with all the NBA's rigged accusations.
I'm just going to tell you right there, if they get into the top 4, that pick needs to be traded somewhere to get a star. We'll just start right there. I don't want to. I'm not even going to break down who they would pick at that point. It's just going to be, hey, that pick is going somewhere. Because the order of business here really, and I know we're going to get into a lot of Klay Thompson, and I'm going to kind of hand you the reins here to keep me on task for the next 35, 40 minutes. But if they keep the pick, they wouldn't be keeping it for very long. Although it would be a hell of an asset to attempt to move. The downside, though, is it also then ties up it ties up the inability to do things in the future, because then you would have a pick that doesn't convey to Portland, which they would still owe in future years. So I know there's been a short debate as to what's better or worse. Like I think there's probably a good chunk of the Warriors front office, like, let's just get this thing over with so we can figure out what picks in the future can be attached to some possible deals to try to get Steph Curry some help, try to get that second best player in here for the 24-25 season.
And that's going to bring us to a little bit into the current landscape of things in the NBA. A week from today, it will be the 1 month mark of when the Warriors season ended in Sacramento at the Golden One Center. Not a particularly close game at all. The Kings just took it to them. So here's the deal. We all know that the season ended in a major disappointment, despite the 27-12 record to finish the regular season. But it turns out that they're not the only ones in the West where it ended in such a feeling. They are now joined
Who didn't, right?
No, seriously. I mean, the Kings didn't even make the postseason. The Pelicans lost Zion Williamson, and they got convincingly swept. Now you got reports that Brandon Ingram and Willie Green had a locker room exchange in game 2 of that series. The Suns, quote-unquote, super team got annihilated. Frank Vogel was fired just about 2 hours ago, and now they're saying Mike Budenholzer is the favorite to be the next candidate. The Clippers, who were the best team in the NBA for a couple months there in the first part of the season, ended in the same old fate and lost to Dallas in 6. And then the Lakers, after having a 20-point lead on the defending champions in game 2, just got it taken to them, and that sort of broke their will. They lost in 5 in a revenge series. So it's a lot of teams that really ended in this zone of, what are we going to do now?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think Ingram's gone. I think that's probably worth thinking. I know David Griffin had said that he essentially had thought that he'd seen enough of their team, which I found to be really interesting, given the fact that they did win 49 or 50. I think, did they end up with 50? I think they ended up, I guess, 49 or 50. But whatever it was, they didn't have Zion Williamson, and they got swept in the first round after they eliminated Sacramento. And so, I mean, I think New Orleans is looking to make some changes. I think, really all of these teams looking to make changes. And that's the overarching theme for me for this NBA offseason as a whole. And we haven't even gotten into the Eastern Conference teams that are going to be probably looking to make some significant changes. But with all of the teams looking to make major changes, I think the Warriors they are going to have an avenue or avenues if they're willing to dip their toe in the ocean a little bit and look to try to ride the waves and not be so conservative that they just don't want to, that they paralyze themselves into not wanting to do anything. Bottom line, there are going to be options, and a lot of these teams, a couple of them may be stuck, but I think a lot of these teams are going to be looking to make big moves. And when you have a third to half of the league looking to make big moves, then I think if you're the Warriors, somehow, some way, you're going to have the potential to get in on the action somewhere in an attempt to try and improve your own roster and bring the number one offseason priority to light, which in my mind, I don't know what it is for you, but in my mind, the number one offense or the number one Warriors priority is find a number 2 for Steph. Find a number.
Has to be.
Not Wiggins. It's not get off of the contract. It's not get your financial house in order. It's not build, add more young players to develop for the future. Like that day's coming 2-3 years from now. Like that's coming 26, 27, somewhere in there. But to me, it's the number one goal should be everything you possibly can do to get that number 2. And then you worry about Klay Thompson, and then you worry about Wiggins, and then you look at which of the young players are still around. after that, and how you know, hopefully still have some depth that is balanced between veteran and youth.
Yeah, well, one of my big takeaways from round one, JD, honestly, was that you need at least 2 stars and a team. You need both of those elements. And I think the Warriors actually did figure out that team part pretty well with that 27-12 finish of the regular season. At least seemed like the roster was more comfortable in figuring out their role. But they did lack a second star all year. Now, you can also play the other side and say, well, look at Phoenix. They had 3 really high caliber players, but they couldn't stop anybody. They had no distributor for 3 big scorers. But then let's go Minnesota, Denver, Oklahoma City, for example. They have both. Like, I think Karl Anthony Towns, for as much as people can harp on him, he's a really nice number 2 option. Like, Anthony Edwards can be that guy, and we've seen the just monumental display he has put on in this postseason, probably being the best player in the league over the last month. But Karl Anthony Towns has been great too. He just doesn't have to be the focal point. Like, Cat is not a 1, but now you look at Minnesota, they got at least 2 guys. They have the defensive player of the year, and they've got the team element. And that's just an example right there. Like, OKC has all these young players who are ahead of schedule. They got Jalen Williams, Chet, and SGA. Denver, obviously the reigning defending champions, and they have 2 all-star caliber players, despite Jamal Murray never being officially named an all-star. I think the Warriors actually figured out the team chemistry part of it, but the second star is really what they lacked, and that's why we haven't really talked about them much since April 16th.
No, and I think it's funny as you kind of look at some of the teams we've already talked about, and you know, Minnesota, their emergence and current as we sit here, 2-0 lead on Denver in the second round makes me wonder, and I had the thought the other night as they were blowing the Nuggets out, I thought, damn, could they win the title this year? Like, and which was something that I never would have imagined really up until that point. But they had been a team, frankly, that I had thought, hey, maybe they're going to have to take a piece away, whether it's Towns or Naz Reid or whomever. And, you know, could that be potential but things have gone so well that almost regardless of what happens now, you know, maybe they win the title, maybe they don't. I mean, I still think they probably don't win the title, but they've looked amazing to this point. But, you know, maybe that scratches Karl Anthony Towns off the list as far as, you know, I had him on that short list of could he be somebody that Minnesota looks to get off of. I don't think they're going to be looking to necessarily do that, given the balance that they have on the roster with Gobert anchoring the defense and Edwards is clear-cut star, and you know they've got McDaniels who's a hell of a two-way player, and Conley's the glue, and they've just got all this length and size, and you know they in a lot of ways have the perfect balance. So but to your point, everybody's got 2. And, you know, even a team like Sacramento has 2, and, you know, it wasn't good enough to get them in. But yeah, Dallas they had 2, and then they didn't have 2 when they had Brunson and Luka. And now they have 2 again with Kyrie because Kyrie's motivated and you know, it's a good Kyrie here. So, you know, who knows about next
Kyrie? Who
knows about next year? Like next year might be where's Kyrie again, and they're battling to get into the play-in tournament themselves. Like that actually wouldn't surprise me. But they've got Kyrie locked in and playing well. So yeah, it doesn't mean you have to tear the whole thing down to the studs if you're the Warriors to get that number 2. But it also, and I know I say second star or number 2 to Steph, maybe it isn't a star, but and I think that's the unfortunate area that the Warriors I think find themselves in right now, is because we can sit here and say star, Greg, but the reality is they just need a player that's better than everybody else not named Steph Curry. And that player doesn't have to be a star to still fill that void, which I think makes the discussion about the necessity to go get said player a lot more difficult.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think Draymond's kind of the one player that
like DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan, for example, just real quick, for example, DeMar DeRozan is a little older. He's not a superstar, not even an all-star anymore, but he'd easily be the Warriors' second best player by a lot walking onto this roster after Stephen Curry. And there are, DeJounte Murray is another, I think, example of that. Brandon Ingram would be an example of that. Like, there are a lot of examples of players that you would not call stars or superstars that still would check the box of, they walk right onto the Warriors roster and they're the number 2, with Draymond kind of being the glue, connector to Steph Curry, anchor of the defense, kind of a 3 type player.
Right. Like, I was going to say Draymond's kind of in his own category because he's still the head of the snake on the defense, but he's also not going to score you 20 points in a game unless he's doing that 3-point barrage he had against the Lakers, which you might see every couple of years when he was 5 for 5 in the first half. But yeah, he's kind of in his own category, and I think you can't consider him a 2 because of his play style, but he's still going to be that offensive connector to Steph and the great communicator on the defensive side. But yeah, I mean, and here's the thing too, which I know it might upset some people, but you could have Chris Paul gone next year and you could have Andrew Wiggins gone, and that doesn't necessarily help your team in and of itself.
No, it's not addition by subtraction. I've said, like, I think Chris Paul, I think you and I are in a little different place on Chris Paul. Like, I liked what Chris Paul provided for the Warriors. I also just look at it clearly and objectively with the money that he's making and his age and the combinations of play. He wasn't happy playing as little as he did. Like, as much as it in a lot of ways worked, in other ways it didn't. And it's also, I think, in some ways unfair to Chris Paul to basically make him do it again, right? Like, I think he was a good sport about it. But I think it wouldn't surprise me if Chris Paul went in the exit interview and was like, hey, I really enjoyed my time here. This was great. But, you guys need a different dude. Like, I don't want to play 20 minutes, even if I'm making 30 million. I don't want to, I want to play more. And the Warriors would look at that and go, well, that's not the player that we need you to be for us to be successful. So I look at it as, Wiggins can, Chris Paul is probably gone. Like, that's just, I like Chris Paul is probably gone. And
Chris Paul
should be gone.
Yeah, I was going to say, for any of the pluses he brought, like, he's still the player he is, and the style of play doesn't necessarily fix the issues with the Warriors roster in terms of age, size, and athleticism. Like, he's a very smart player, and I think he was great for the youngsters, but a Chris Paul is also not fixing some of the things you lack. Like, part of the reason Trace Jackson Davis got the run that he did is because he was doing things that no one else on the roster was really providing.
Right. Exactly. And so I view Chris Paul in a different light than I do Wiggins. And Wiggins is somebody that I've been pretty clear the Warriors are looking to move him. I don't think anybody's shocked by that. But you can't just moving him because, and I think this is where a lot of the conversation has gone so far here in the nearly month since the Warriors have gone out. You just ask people, you ask fans, you ask other media members, is like, what are they going to do? What do they need to do? And like, to a person, it's, well, you got to get rid of Wiggins. You got to get off Wiggins. You got to trade Wiggins. You got to do this. And I'm thinking, I mean, maybe, but that in and of itself, like, trading Wiggins off of this roster for, let's say, a big man who can score but doesn't do much else and is somebody that another team wants to get off of for their own reasons why they're disappointed in that player, maybe somewhat similarly to the Warriors with Wiggins. That doesn't make you better. Because then you have no threes on your roster. You have no point of attack on ball defenders on your roster.
Except Gary Payton, who's very hit or miss with his health.
Right, exactly. And so, but again, I don't even count Gary. Yeah, Gary Payton can do it, but Gary Payton can do it for 17 minutes. Like, you need somebody that can do it for the rest of the game. You need somebody that can do it for the other 31 minutes that you got to play plus. So, again, that being said, I understand the Warriors wanting to potentially look to move off of Wiggins. But you can't just look at the players you're disappointed in and say, these are the guys we want to move, and we're going to get better because we move these guys. And like that, that isn't how it works. Like, you're not trading Andrew Wiggins for the new second best player on your roster. I feel like that's, in a lot of people's eyes, that's well, you gotta get rid of Wiggins, and you gotta get like Wiggins and picks. And it's really probably Wiggins and pick a couple of young players you like.
Maybe Kuminga and Moody. And
picks to get the guy that you really need. Like, it's all three of those things. And I think, this leads down that path of the debates that, like, you want to get better. You want to get rid of the guys you don't like or aren't producing, but then you want to keep all the guys that you like. And again, that isn't reality in professional sports when you're in a position, especially that the Warriors are in.
Yeah, and my note on Wiggins, as I was kind of organizing my thoughts yesterday, is that I fully acknowledge that for 2/3 of the season, he was either absent or extremely underwhelming. But the hard truth is that the rest of the league's interest in having Andrew Wiggins is not that far off from what the loud voices of this fan base's interest level is, which is none. Yeah. And I mean, Sam Amick gave a great interview yesterday on our morning show, and he mentioned the quote, like, yeah, I know it's a little cliche, but the best ability is availability. He just hasn't really been that available for chunks of the last 2 years. And then when he has been, it's been kind of like he's here, but that's not the 2022 Andrew Wiggins. It's not even anything close to it. I think there were flashes of the 24 Andrew Wiggins where you're like, yeah, this could help the team, but not consistently enough to where they were anything but a 10 seed.
And we've got to stop thinking that the 2022 Andrew Wiggins is coming through that door, which I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting myself by saying all of that and then saying the Warriors should keep him, because I'm not even saying the Warriors should keep him, but he's not going to be the focal point of the deal that makes the Warriors dramatically better. He might be part of it, but he's not the focal point. The focal point is going to be Kuminga and or other young players. And look, and I've said it, and it's not, and it's not that I want the Warriors to trade Kuminga. It's just the logical path. I mean, we made it 24 minutes into this thing before I mentioned trading Kuminga. So we got to get, but the logical, you got to give me some kind of, you give me a cookie for that, Greg. But as it is just Dubs here, JD, Greg Silver, offseason podcast edition here for KNBR, the sports leader. But it's when you look at it logically. And we had Mark Spears on. I was filling in for John Lund and with Greg Papa, and we were just talking about stuff. And I thought Spears said it perfectly. He says, "Well," and I'm paraphrasing. He's like, "Unfortunately, you gotta, if you want to get one of these guys, talking about some of the potential stars or number two players that are going to be available, whoever they are, and we don't really know who all of them are. Unfortunately, you got to be willing to move Kuminga." Like, and again, it's not that you want to move him, but he is the guy in my mind. And again, you talk to some people and they disagree with me on this. Like, they think that he doesn't have the most, like, I think he absolutely has the most value of the Warrior.
Yeah. When you consider the ceiling and the age and what the spurts we got to witness in 2023, 24, I think he absolutely does.
But it can't be, if you're the Warriors, well, we're only trading him for Giannis, or we're only trading him for a superstar. We're only trading him for Embiid. We're only trading him for Giannis. We're only trading. I don't know. You pick your names. There's 4 names of, but Spears said it, which is, you don't. Unfortunately, that's what you're going to have to think about doing if you want to bring that player in, because Wiggins alone doesn't do it, and future first round picks alone don't do it. It's going to be a combination of all of that. And look, more power to the Warriors if they have the ability to do it without including him. But I just don't see how they could look to do the deal to get the player that they need without including him or TJD / Podziemski. And that's where I'm in a little bit of a different place. Like, I also look at it as Kuminga has the most value. And despite the fact that his ceiling is the highest, the timeline by which he achieves that ceiling doesn't fit with the Steph timeline in all likelihood. Maybe we're proven wrong by that, but I doubt it. Highly doubt it. But
no, that's exactly it, though. Like, I think people who are convinced that Kuminga's the next great player of this franchise, but also
then it's him
are
alone
living and dying with Steph getting that 5th ring, I just don't think they're on a synonymous timeline.
No, and so it's, to me, again, when you go back to logic, it becomes, well, Podziemski's proven he can be a role player, and Trayce Jackson-Davis has proven he can be a role player, and even Moses Moody has proven he can be a role player. Kuminga has, I think, proven he could be more than that. But again, he's the one, because he's proven he can be more than that. He's the one with the most value. Like I want to keep the other guys because I know they're role players that fit with Steph and Draymond and potentially Klay. And Kuminga gets you the second guy that you need because he isn't going to be that guy yet. And by the time he is, Steph's done. And so logically, it's, you use Kuminga to get the guy you need and the future picks who aren't going to be on next year or the next 2 years rosters playing big roles anyway. You use those guys to get you the guy you need as the 2. Then you've got Steph and Draymond and the other young players who have proven that they can be role players. And then you got something. Like that's your best chance to me at having something for 24-25.
Let me ask you this question, just to play a little bit of hypotheticals, because I know that's kind of what Dub Nation's going to be doing all the way up until July 1st when free agency kicks in. Let's use your DeMar DeRozan example. Let's say the pipe dream players of Giannis or Kevin Durant are out the window. But let's say you can package Jonathan Kuminga and maybe one of the young players or maybe Wiggins or picks or whatever. But let's say Kuminga's for sure in a deal to go and get DeMar DeRozan, and that is enough to lift the Warriors to about a 6 seed in the West. Is that even worth it at that point? Because on one hand, you're talking like, Steph, how many more years do you have at playing this great level? And maybe we don't want to see a similar ending to what Dirk and Kobe had with their respective one team for long stretches. But on the other hand, it's like, well, Kuminga has a chance to really be something, and it might be after the Steph Curry timeline. And do you just throw that out the window to just get a little better from where you were this year?
Yeah, I mean, that ultimately is the discussion, because the flip side to that, though, is let's say you don't do it. Let's say you just ride it out, and it's Wiggins for like I think you're worse if you keep Kuminga and you trade Wiggins for, let's say, a big, and you don't have a 3, and you're trying to figure out, who knows about Klay? We haven't even talked about him yet. But to me, you're probably at that point worse. Even if Kuminga's numbers are better, I feel like you're probably worse. So there would be to me, what you don't want is this illusion that Kuminga improved again and you didn't give him up and you got rid of Wiggins and you brought somebody else in and you missed the playoffs again. Because I feel like that is the alternative at this point. Like it's one or the other. Like and the scenario that you want in both of these situations is if you make the deal and you go get the number 2 with the other role players and everything else, what you're hoping for if you're the Warriors is that you can, be top 6 but be top 6 and be threatening. Maybe you are good enough and built well enough to not take till February to figure out how you need to play, and you can win 50 games in the regular season and put yourself in a position where maybe you're the 4 or the 5. Maybe it's a little bit of a different year next year. Maybe maybe you're better than all these other teams, Lakers, Clippers, Suns, that have the potential to be messes. Maybe you're better than all those teams. And if you do that, well, then you are 5 or 6, 4, 5, 6. So, maybe it still is Denver, Minnesota, OKC, but then maybe you're right there in that next position with a chance to move up. So I think and those teams could have letdowns as well. So regardless of what you do, the goal is the same. Because I don't think, if you keep Kuminga, you trade Wiggins, you do that, the goal is still the same. It's not, we're going to develop now and keep these up. Okay, yeah, you're going to develop and you're going to be 12th or 13th in the West because these other teams behind you are moving up. So to me, it's not, it's worth the risk, I guess, over these next couple of years. And, it's not like you're not going to be developing young players either. You're going to continue to develop TJD. You'd continue to develop Podziemski. I do think they have to make a decision on Moody. I think it's wholly unfair to have him go through what they've had him go through really this year, especially, and then get to the end of the year and it's like, is he in the rotation? Is he not? Basically have it end exactly where it's ended every other year. So, he probably has quietly asked for a trade. He probably did the quiet version of what Kuminga did in January, which is I need a role or I'm out. And, I want to be out. So they got to figure that out for real. But if they're intent on playing Moody, then they got to build the freaking roster in a way where Moody can play all the time. And so, I think that's part of the calculus of what truly, Greg, is a tricky offseason. Look, they can keep Kuminga. And they can look to do it a different way, but I think it's going to be harder for them to, what I don't want to see is they mostly keep it the same, move off of Wiggins, say they're developing and competing, and they end up 11th in the West. That to me, even if they win 44, 45 games, 43, 44 games, that does nothing. That does nothing for me next year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And we have about 10 minutes left here on this podcast, but don't worry, we'll have plenty more going. Going to be hopping on Sports Phone with Kerry Crowley, our guy, so that's going to be fun, talking more Warriors. And I'll make 2 statements. The first one to kind of wrap up this discussion, and the second one to sort of segue into the last topic. The first one is, regardless of where you stand on go get a second star, trade Kuminga, don't trade Kuminga, what's the top priority? Bottom line is, Steph Curry is going to decide what is best for Steph Curry in the last few years of his career. And whatever they decide, he will co-sign off on that. So he's got some hard decisions to make for himself. Going off of that into the next part, there's another player that's going to decide what is best for said player. That's Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Because Klay Thompson, regardless of whether or not he re-signs with the Golden State Warriors, it is fair to say he will be offered a lot of money to go elsewhere. And I'm looking directly at a team that was young, ahead of schedule, and lost in 7 games, the Orlando Magic. This is a team that shot 31% from deep in the postseason, just 42% overall. Getting over 100 points for them was a real struggle. They only did it once on the road. That was game 5. And they were second in the entire postseason in opponent turnovers. So their defense is and has been very much for real. So when you look at a player like Klay and some of the things that he doesn't do as well after the injuries, like defense and lateral movement, and you look at what he still can do well, which is make a lot of open shots and get to his spot, that's the type of player that might be able to fit well on another team. And I think that the Klay discussion is going to be really big as you look at these other teams that are kind of falling off in the postseason.
Yeah, I have a set number for Klay. I would pay Klay Thompson $25 million a year, and if I'm the Warriors, and I don't think I would go beyond that. I would, and I'll be honest. I think I would even go. I wouldn't necessarily want to do it, but I would probably do 3 and 75 if it came to that. If there was another team that was in the mix where you really thought, because we always talk about the AAV and the total dollars and all this other stuff. It could come down to, we've said, well, what if a team offers 30 a year and the Warriors only want to offer 15, or okay, well then Klay's probably going to be gone unless he really wants to take a significant discount. I think the fair number is right around 24, 25 per. But it might come down to years. It also might come down to years. It might come down to another team is like, yeah, we'll give you the 3. Under no circumstances, I don't think anybody's giving him 4. I would not give him 4 under any circumstances at this point, unless it was a lower money deal. Unless it was like, I wouldn't give him 4 really anyway. But if he wanted to do 4 and 80 or something, and that got the total number down, maybe I would consider something like that. But I don't. That's just me kind of spitballing here, thinking out loud. But yeah, ultimately, you said it. It's up to Klay, and to me, more than the money, it's the willingness to accept the lesser role. It's the willingness to, and Steve Kerr talked about this in his post end of season press conference, the post-mortem. He's got to be willing to do it. It helped the team. It helped Klay. Klay can't have the Chris Paul syndrome where he wants to, because remember, that's how he justified the move to the bench. He justified the move to the bench with, well, I'm still playing 33 minutes. I'm still playing, close to what well, actually, Klay, it's probably better for you and the team if you're only playing 27 minutes a lot of nights, or 25 minutes some nights. Now, if you're hot and you're playing well, I said it a couple years ago and people disagreed with me, and I'm sure Klay Thompson hated it, but he should, to me, if there was any player in the history of the league that should never play back-to-backs again, to me, it would have been him coming off the 2 injuries. And yet he was hell-bent on doing it. And I'm still somewhat surprised the Warriors let him do it as quickly as they did and as frequently as they did. But that was a roadblock he wanted to get through. And so to me, he's the guy that should be managed where, all right, maybe you do play some back-to-backs, maybe you don't play other back-to-backs. And you need to be under 30 minutes. So to me, it's the acceptance of that role, in addition to the money that ultimately is going to decide this thing. And again, I personally think it's good for the Warriors if Klay Thompson comes back, but we have to wrap our heads around the fact that he's just an extra now. He's not the 2, and he's really, maybe some nights he's the 3, but he's just he's not the guy that you're counting on to get the production from, because the truth is, and Klay played this out in the second half of the season and even more so at the beginning. You know what? Flip a freaking coin. Klay Thompson might make 10, 11 threes. Klay Thompson might go 1 for 11 or 0 for 10
in an elimination game,
or 3 for 16. So again, we'll see. Orlando, I know Philadelphia, it was a team that I've read some reports on possible interest. The Lakers obviously already there. I even saw Memphis a day or two ago. Could they potentially want him? But yeah, it's going to be role and acceptance. And I think the Warriors are better for bringing Klay back, but he's depth. He's third, fourth, fifth option, not number 2 option anymore.
I also have some food for thought for everybody, and I'll run this by you first, of course, as we kind of transition out of this episode and have a few days to watch more hoops and take more in. When you think about Klay re-signing with the Warriors, you mentioned the years element to it. It takes me back to something Marcus Thompson brought up on KMBR with Tolbert and Copes, I believe it was. And that was, does re-signing Klay to a 2-year deal even put a bow on the, hey, you're all going to finish your careers together with the Warriors? And I say that because Draymond's been on the record saying he wants to play maybe 2 or 3 more years, or now make that 1 or 2. No, I guess it would be 2 or 3 from now. But he's been on the record saying he's coming to the end. Steph is, in all likelihood, never going to play for another team. And he's going to have 4 kids to raise after the fact. Klay, he would be the one guy to kind of just be like, no, I'll keep playing. Like, I'll just keep playing as long as I could play. Draymond is going to have a whole NBA media career. Steph's going to have a family. He'll be a busy guy. Klay's got his boat. He's got good vibes hanging out in the Bay. He's got Rocco. He might want to play more than 2 years. So re-signing with the Warriors for a little longer might not even guarantee, hey, you're finishing your career here.
No, I don't think it does. I mean, and I mean, we'll see. I think the way you want it, if you're the Warriors, is that Steph sort of dictates it, right? Like as long as Steph is still at the level that he is, or close to it, and going to be around, then you want the other 2 around also. I think for the vibes and the importance of the 3 of them finishing together and all of those ancillary things, in addition to them still being collectively, quality enough to help teams win at a certain level. But so yeah, I don't think you want Klay or Draymond to be the first one to go, if that makes sense. But or at a minimum, Steph in 2 years is all right. Now he definitely is on the decline, and he's kind of playing it out like Dirk or Kobe, 2 to 3 years from now. And Draymond, and they're not contending, and Draymond can go help a team maybe for a year, or Klay can go help another team for a couple of years. Like, I think at that point it's fair game. And I haven't really looked at it like the next 2 years are going to be it. Like, I think Steph's playing more than the next 2. Like, I don't think Steph's retire. I mean, who knows what happens in the next 2, but I don't think Steph Curry's retiring in 2026. I don't think Draymond Green is retiring in 2026 as things sit right now. And I don't think Klay Thompson is retiring in 2026. So again, who knows? Injuries and different things can happen the next couple of years that change that. But I think when they could bring Klay Thompson back, and I don't think it would matter at all as far as salting away the fact that the 3 of them are going to be Warriors or play together till the end of their careers. All right, great stuff. We'll end it on that note. I'm sure we got half a doc that you prepared that we didn't even get to, so we may need to do like a part 2. We may need to do like a part 2 of this podcast. I don't know, over the weekend, something like that. Maybe we'll do a part 2 like Sunday night, Monday.
Exactly. All the leftover notes are for the next one.
All the leftover notes for the next one. Because once we get going, I just start rambling. So yeah, we appreciate you. Thanks for listening. It's just Dubs. Again, every 5 to 7 days, roughly, or when news breaks, we're back in the swing after taking a little bit of a breather following the season. So yeah, we appreciate you. For Greg, I'm JD, and we'll talk to you here in a few days. KMBR, the Sports Leader.